By one vote, Congress refused to rein in an undeclared war with Iran.
I mean, it's 213 to 214. It's a razor-thin margin, but it basically defines our entire legislative reality right now.
Right. Welcome to the 10th. This is a nonpartisan deep dive from Amendment.
Glad to be here.
So our mission today is to cut through all the noise and summarize the actual legislative activity for the week of April 13th through the 20th, 2026.
Yeah, and we are looking at what state legislatures and Congress actually got done.
Exactly. Because while the national cameras were hyper-fixated on that, that single paralyzing vote in D.C., there's this massive structural rerouting of American power happening right under our noses.
Completely.
And a central metaphor kind of jumped out at me while I was looking through the data for this week. It's like the federal grid blew out and the 50-state generators picked up the load.
Oh, that is the perfect mechanical description of what the data is showing us right now. Because when a primary electrical grid goes dark, the current doesn't just evaporate. Physics demands that it find a path, right? So it reroutes through these smaller, localized generators to keep the system running.
And right now, the federal legislature is locked in this absolute grinding stalemate.
Yes, which is triggering a massive consolidation of power in the federal executive branch.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Let's start with that primary grid failure. HCon Res 40 failing by a single vote is like the ultimate example of this mechanical gridlock.
Definitely. And just for context, HCon Res 40, that's a House concurrent resolution. It was designed to force congressional approval before any further U.S. military action against Iran.
Right, and lawmakers use a concurrent resolution there specifically because it bypasses the president's veto pen. Like they only need the two chambers to agree.
But they couldn't. Like we said, it failed 213 to 214.
Which is wild.
It is. And the political fault lines are just incredibly rigid. Representative Jared Golden was the sole Democrat to vote no, and Representative Thomas Massey was the sole Republican to vote yes.
Wow, just one defection on each side.
Exactly. And, this isn't an isolated thing. Over in the Senate, we tracked S-4278, which is Senator Mark Kelly's Peace Act.
Yeah.
And S-4278 marks the Senate's fourth rejected Iran war powers resolution just this year alone.
The mechanics of S-4278 are really fascinating to me because it wasn't just a policy statement. It was fundamentally a financial clawback mechanism.
Right.
The bill aimed to pull back $1.25 billion that President Trump rerouted into this executive order board of peace.
Yeah.
And that money was moved without a formal congressional appropriation. But the scale of this is what really stopped me in my tracks.
It's massive.
The president has pledged $10 billion total to this new body. We're talking about a budget roughly 12 times the annual dues that the United States pays to the entire United Nations.
Yeah, the privatization of foreign policy budgets is a huge shift. When you completely bypass the appropriations clause, you alter the foundational checks and balances of federal spending. And we're seeing that exact same paralysis spill over into domestic surveillance, too. Like, H.R. 8035 was completely yanked from the floor this week.
H.R. 8035, that's the long-term extension for Section 702, right?
Yes.
So for anyone tracking the intelligence community, Section 702 is the warrantless search authority. It dictates the rules for when an intelligence analyst can read the texts and emails of Americans without getting a traditional probable cause warrant from a judge.
Right, the so-called U.S. person queries. And instead of resolving it, they ended up just passing a stopgap measure, punting the actual legislative fight down the road to April 30th.
So the legislative branch is frozen. But a legislature frozen in place creates a vacuum.
And in governance, vacuums get filled immediately. The federal grid is paralyzed legislatively, but it is highly turbulent executively.
Yes, the sheer volume of executive developments this week reflects like an overloaded circuit breaker.
Oh, absolutely. Just look at the timeline. The president fired Attorney General Pam Bondi, and her replacement is the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin.
Who brings zero Department of Justice experience to the role.
None. And the legislative branch's only response to that kind of executive turbulence just seems to be filing these articles of impeachment that have no mathematical chance of actually passing.
Right, like Representative Summer Lee filing articles against Barndy over defying the Epstein file subpoenas.
Exactly. And Representative Yasemin Ansari filing 6 articles against Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
And those covered the unauthorized Iran strikes, the missile incident at the Iranian school, and those leaks of signal messages, right?
Yeah. We even saw Representative Jamie Raskin formally demand a cognitive assessment of President Trump by April 25th, citing the executive threats to strike Iranian bridges and power plants.
It's a cascade of systemic friction. When the legislative breaker trips and Congress can't pass a budget or set a boundary, the executive branch just surges.
It operates purely on the momentum of its existing authority.
Right. And we saw that surge when the DOJ bypassed normal judicial boundaries by indicting those journalists, Don Lemon and Georgia Ford, via a grand jury for covering a Minnesota church protest.
And that was only after 3 separate federal district courts flat out refused to sign the arrest warrants.
Unbelievable.
And then we tracked the FBI raid on the Fulton County Elections Office to seize local ballots.
Oh, wow, right.
Which happened just weeks after the president signed that executive order trying to build a federal voter list. That action alone triggered immediate lawsuits from 22 state attorneys general.
And the courts are caught in this too. 2 federal appeals courts ruled this week that the government may indefinitely jail long-term U.S. residents without a bond hearing,
overriding district judges who had previously sided with detainees 350 out of 362 times.
It's just massive institutional strain, and apparently it's manifesting physically. The Atlantic reported that FBI Director Kash Patel's security detail has repeatedly been unable to wake him up for morning intelligence briefings.
Yeah, to the point of reportedly requesting SWAT breaching equipment just to get into his room.
Which is wild, considering this is the same director who recently dismissed the FBI's core Iran experts.
So the overarching picture in Washington is a dark, paralyzed legislature and a surging, unchecked executive.
Which leads to the obvious question. If the federal grid is this dark and chaotic, where are the rules that we actually live by being written right now?
Well, they are being written in what Justice Louis Brandeis famously called the laboratories of democracy.
The laboratories of democracy. I love that frame.
It's foundational. The idea is that when the federal apparatus fails, or when testing a novel policy nationwide is just too risky, single states step in to run the experiment.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at those laboratories. Because all the data we're parsing today, the text, the roll calls, all these specific mechanisms, it comes directly from amendment.app.
Yes.
And looking at that data, this week, 6 states did things no state has ever done before. And these aren't just minor resolutions. They are massive structural shifts.
Yeah, let's start with the digital frontier. Nebraska passed LB 525, making them the very first state to enact a standalone farm data privacy law.
Which is so critical when you think about the mechanics of modern agriculture. I mean, a modern John Deere tractor isn't just a piece of machinery anymore.
Not at all.
It's basically a rolling data harvesting server. It collects granular agronomic data, soil density metrics, climate details.
And under LB 525, farmers now legally and explicitly own that telematics data. No tech company or equipment manufacturer can monetize or sell it without their written consent.
And the entire Nebraska legislature recognized the necessity of this. It passed unanimously.
Completely unanimous. Sticking with those digital boundaries, Washington State passed HB 2320.
Right, the ghost gun bill.
Exactly. Other states have banned the physical plastic used to make ghost guns, but HB 2320 makes Washington the first state to criminalize the actual CNC code and the 3D print files used to manufacture them.
So they're criminalizing the digital supply chain itself.
Yes. And just briefly, CNC code, that stands for Computer Numerical Control. It's the raw digital instruction manual that tells a machining tool how to manipulate materials in physical space.
It's basically saying, look, we aren't just going to outlaw the illegal cake. We're going to make it a felony to possess or distribute the recipe.
That is a great way to put it. It's a fascinating legal boundary. Washington also passed SB 5395. This makes them the first state to bar health insurers from using artificial intelligence as the sole basis to deny care.
Okay, so under SB 5395, an AI algorithm can approve your medical care in seconds. But if you want to deny, delay, or modify that care,
the file has to be reviewed by a human licensed physician.
Wow.
The states are just aggressively addressing systemic access. Look at New Mexico. They passed SB 241, officially becoming the first state to guarantee free universal child care for every resident, completely regardless of income bracket.
That's huge. And since they began the rollout in November, the data shows they've enrolled over 12,600 new families and opened 63 new child care providers.
It's a massive shift. And over in Virginia, they passed SB 322, making them the 19th state to join the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact.
And the first new signatory since 2023.
Right. But the 6th bill in this group might honestly be the most consequential for the entire technology sector. Oregon passed SB 15406.
making Oregon the first state to let users directly sue AI chatbot companies.
Exactly. SB 1546 creates a legal mechanism known as a private right of action.
Okay, let's pause and unpack that. Because private right of action is a term that gets thrown around in legal circles constantly, but it rarely gets explained functionally. Structurally, what does that actually change?
It's a great question. A private right of action removes the state from the equation entirely. Normally, if a corporation violates a consumer protection law, you have to wait for the state's attorney general to decide that your specific case is worth the state's time and resources to prosecute.
Which creates a massive bottleneck.
A huge bottleneck. SB 1546 bypasses that. It gives the private citizen the direct legal key to the courthouse. You can file the lawsuit yourself.
And the statutory penalties in SB 526 fundamentally alter the math for these AI developers.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if an AI companion fails to explicitly disclose that it is a bot, or if it ignores a user expressing suicidal ideation, the company owes $1,000 per violation.
Plus attorney fees.
Plus fees. And that penalty goes directly to the harmed user.
It's an overnight shift in the risk calculus. When millions of individual users suddenly possess a private right of action, deploying a flawed AI model goes from being a public relations risk to a catastrophic financial liability.
Because Congress isn't passing sweeping national standards, these laboratories of democracy are single-handedly shaping the realities of healthcare and tech for millions of Americans.
They really are.
Let's dig deeper into that healthcare patchwork. At the federal level, the Medicare drug negotiations established by the IRA are legally frozen right now. So the states are doing the cost control work themselves.
Virginia just passed SB 669, taking direct aim at pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs.
Right. And PBMs operate as these massive middlemen, right?
Huh.
Sitting between pharmaceutical manufacturers, local pharmacies, and your health insurance provider.
Yes, and they utilize a mechanism called spread pricing. They negotiate a rebate from the manufacturer, but then they keep a significant percentage of that rebate for themselves rather than passing the savings on to the patient.
So PBMs are essentially the toll booth operators on the healthcare highway. But instead of just taking a quarter for maintenance, they've been keeping a percentage of the actual cargo.
That's exactly it. And under SB 669, Virginia just ripped the toll booths down. The bill mandates strict pass-through pricing. It forces 100% of those manufacturer rebates to go directly to the patient at the point of sale.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
We also saw HB 6, the Right to Contraception Act, become law in Virginia this week.
Yes, establishing a statewide statutory right to FDA-approved contraception. And in neighboring Maryland, the legislature passed HB 637, the Vax Act. HB 637 officially severs Maryland's vaccine policy from the federal CDC. Moving forward, the state Secretary of Health will establish official recommendations based on internal scientific review, which basically renders federal guidance elective within the state.
And down in Kentucky, they passed HB 169. This directly bars insurers from utilizing BMI body mass index as the sole metric to deny insurance coverage for eating disorders.
And the medical context there is so crucial because eating disorders carry the highest mortality rate of any mental health condition.
So we are seeing 5 major healthcare interventions in 5 states in a single week.
Yeah.
And that exact same localized momentum is dictating the future of artificial intelligence.
The evolution of state AI regulation over the last 12 months is just staggering. Last year, state-level AI bills mostly just established study commissions and advisory task forces. It was entirely theoretical.
Right, very cautious.
But this week, we saw the transition to hard structural enforcement.
Because we just discussed Washington's SB 5395 barring AI from insurance denials and Oregon's SB 1546 creating that private right of action.
Yeah.
But add Tennessee to the list.
Yes.
They passed SB 1580, which legally bans AI systems from posing as licensed mental health professionals. And it carries a steep $5,000 fine per violation.
And the voting data on SB 1580 is striking. It passed 94-0 in the House and 32-0 in the Senate. Unanimous.
Furthermore, in Illinois, SB 33444 is actively advancing. That one establishes a strict legal definition for critical harm and directly attaches liability to the underlying AI developers, not just the end users.
Right.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Let me push back on Brandeis's theory here for a second, because I'm looking at this from the perspective of an engineer.
Okay, go ahead.
The laboratories of democracy concept sounds incredibly elegant in a political science seminar. But functionally, doesn't a 50-state AI patchwork actually stifle innovation? Well, if I am an independent developer building a new AI tool in my garage, I now face a private lawsuit in Oregon, a civil fine in Tennessee, an insurance licensing rule in Washington, and statutory liability in Illinois. Doesn't this messy 50-state patchwork guarantee that tech companies will eventually go running to Washington begging for one uniform federal rule?
Honestly, yes. Historically, a fragmented patchwork heavily favors well-capitalized incumbents. Industry compliance officers absolutely despise localized patchworks.
Because it's a compliance nightmare.
Exactly. It heavily advantages massive monopolies who can afford armies of 50-state compliance lawyers. But the mechanical outcome of the state-level pressure is that it eventually forces federal action. Tech companies will soon be lobbying Washington directly, begging for federal preemption, a single uniform national law that overrides the states simply to standardize their compliance costs.
But until Congress can actually pass one, these localized state generators are dictating the law of the land.
That's right. And while the national narrative remains singularly obsessed with the partisan chaos of the blown federal grid, those state generators are also pushing through massive bipartisan economic wins that are completely flying under the radar.
Let's run through that bipartisan slate. Because when you strip away the ideological theater, you see state legislatures executing highly localized structural fixes.
Yes.
Like Iowa passing HF 2514, the vote on that was 86-3 in the House and 46-0 in the Senate.
Almost entirely bipartisan.
And the bill structurally alters state assistance, allowing child care workers to actually qualify for state subsidies for their own children. It is a direct mechanical fix to the massive turnover in the child care labor market.
Then in the housing sector, Wisconsin launched AB 454. That creates a state-backed 0% interest cap loan for first-time homebuyers. It pairs directly with a conventional mortgage to lower monthly payments by up to $270.
Wow. And similarly, Indiana passed HB 1001, which preempts local zoning ordinances entirely.
Right. Under HB 1001, every residentially zoned lot across the state must allow at least 2 homes or a duplex by default.
Indiana overriding local zoning is a massive supply-side intervention.
It is.
And Wisconsin didn't just tackle housing. They unanimously passed AB 131, unlocking $133.5 million to clean up PFAS, those so-called forever chemicals, in local water supplies.
And the funding mechanism in AB 131 breaks 3 years of gridlock there. It allocates $80 million for municipal infrastructure grants and $35 million specifically for contaminated private wells at homes and daycares.
Proving that states can directly fund infrastructure emergencies when the federal government is absent.
Exactly. Then Illinois attacked market structures by passing HB 3564, which is a sweeping ban on rental junk fees.
I love the mechanics of this one. HB 3564 caps rental application fees at $50. It strictly outlaws arbitrary move-in fees and mandates that every single required fee be explicitly itemized on the very first page of the lease agreement.
Yes. If it isn't on page 1, the tenant legally does not owe it.
Which prevents algorithmic pricing software from artificially hiding the true cost of rent.
We also saw South Carolina restructure their entire income tax framework with H 4216, streamlining the code into a simplified 2-bracket system.
And Kentucky unanimously passed HB 692, which legally categorizes the viewing data harvested by your smart TV as highly sensitive information, requiring explicit user consent before collection.
Unanimous votes to protect your TV data, restructure tax brackets, cap predatory rental fees, and fund toxic well cleanups. This is what the actual machinery of governance looks like right now.
It's incredible. And the American public's behavior is actually adapting to this rerouted power structure.
It really is. We got a deeply revealing data point from ResistBot this week regarding where citizens are actually applying pressure.
Right.
With the federal legislative grid effectively dark, the public isn't wasting energy petitioning Congress to pass bills. They are directing their pressure squarely at the branches where power is currently consolidating.
They are pointing their petitions at the running generators.
Precisely. The highest trending petitions this week targeted federal agency rules and executive cabinet appointees.
Like the massive surge we saw, over 2,100 signatures in a single day, demanding the impeachment of FBI Director Kash Patel following those reports of his erratic briefings.
Yeah. And another primary petition, which gained over 1,800 signatures, targeted administrative agency rules opposing H.R. 1897's downstream effects on the Endangered Species Act.
The public intuitively understands that the executive branch and the administrative agencies are the entities operating with actual kinetic momentum right now.
They absolutely do.
The federal grid blew out. The 50-state generators picked up the load. We established that mechanism at the start of the deep dive, and looking at the raw data, the unanimous data privacy laws, the structural child care fixes, the localized AI enforcement models, It proves beyond a doubt that governance in America hasn't stopped.
No, it has simply rerouted.
It really forces you to reconsider your own environment. As you navigate your week, whether you're signing a new apartment lease, filling a prescription at the pharmacy, or downloading an AI companion on your phone, it's worth asking how much of your daily life is actually governed by the quiet, functional state bills passed in these laboratories, rather than the loud, paralyzed apparatus dominating the headlines in Washington.
It is a profound shift in the architecture of American policy.
For the full text, status, and plain English breakdown of any bill we mentioned today, head to amendment.app.